Among Us, the game where you play as a bunch of multivitamins with murderous intent. It's the hot new trending game right now on the internet. Or at least it was when this video was written. Games about amorphous blobs tend to come and go. I'll be the first one to admit that I have an unhealthy addiction to this game, frequently pulling out my phone in the middle of Zoom meetings if they get too boring. I can only listen to art history for so long. Among Us is not the first game by a long shot to become this popular on the internet. Of course, you have the aforementioned Fall Guys, and you also have stuff like Minecraft and Fortnite. Among Us follows a decade-long tradition of viral video games, loved by 12-year-olds everywhere and then memed on 5 years later. But what about this game specifically is so appealing to people? Everyone from casual gamers to people who wear shit like this are going crazy about this game, with the game being the subject of fan animation, songs, and memes all across the internet. And it's not even a new release. The game came out in 2018, at first garnering a concurrent player base of 30 to 50 players at any given time, mostly due to the game's lack of marketing. It wasn't until the game started being played by Twitch streamers and YouTube gamers in 2020 that people really started paying attention. But even then, the game had a small but devoted fan base even back in 2018, at least according to the developers, which is why the game wasn't just left to collect dust. Once people started playing, they got hooked. And you could really pin it on any aspect of the game: the simple game mechanics, the clever concept, the thrill of trying to figure out who's lying or telling the truth. All these things definitely play a part in making this game so memorable. But I'd argue, as I do for most things that are popular, that a big part of what makes Among Us so damn appealing is Among Us has a very appealing aesthetic, and I use the word appealing intentionally. Appeal is one of the 12 principles of animation, being the ability for a character or action on screen to be pleasing and fascinating for the viewer to look at. Good animation is charming, interesting, dynamic, and, dare I say, mesmerizing to observe. But what does this have to do with these little murdering pillboys? Well, I'd argue that Among Us has some of my favorite game animation out there. The animation of Among Us just oozes with style, simplicity, and charm. But how? What makes the animation of Among Us so damn appealing? To research this video, I got some of my friends together to play round upon round of Among Us. I asked some of the most intellectual, clever,
What do you mean Big Chungus? It's just Fat Bugs Bunny.
and mature players to help me conduct my research. But they all said no, so I got these jackasses instead. I need new friends. A lot of what makes Among Us animation so much fun to watch is that it just has this bouncy, cartoonish quality that is just charming. And that's mostly due to how simple it is. Among Us character animations barely have any more than a few key frames to define the movement. The basic run cycle has 4 frames at the most. 1 frame to define the up portion of the run, and 1 frame to define the down portion, with 2 frames of the same poses but with the opposite legs. There aren't really any in-between frames to speak of, which is fine because they aren't really needed. You see, game animation and animation for TV and movies serve different purposes and thereby have to follow different rules. Game animation has to convey information to the player in a way that is clear and concise so that player control feels responsive. Whereas in film and TV animation focuses mostly on acting and character performance. Gamers don't particularly care about the acting performance of their Smash mains. But in both circumstances, whether you're animating for film, television, or games, clarity of action is just a necessity. Which brings us to the animation principle of staging. Staging refers to the presentation of any idea so that it is completely and unmistakably clear. All actions must be easily understandable and all emotions must be readable. The nice part about Among Us animations is how clear they are. With so few frames, the animators have to put extra effort into making each pose clearly readable. The poses have clear silhouettes and they snap to each pose with a sense of bounciness that reminds me of storytime animation YouTubers like The Odd Ones Out or Jaden Animations, particularly in some of their older videos where their avatars bounce from static frame to static frame. It's a common YouTube video editing technique that saves time while staying visually interesting. The animations of Among Us are similar to this, especially in all the kill animations. Each frame snaps from one to the other in such a satisfying, bouncy way. Just look at how much character they have purely from the posing alone. No fancy movements, no over animating, just clear, snappy, dynamic posing. It's the kind of cartoon violence you'd see in the Looney Tunes or Ren and Stimpy. And most of the appeal comes from the one being killed. The imposter stays pretty much completely still for the entire animations. Well, except this one, obviously. But for the other ones, all the focus is spent on this beautiful, melodramatic death, reaching up to the sky in desperation, holding onto that last breath of life, only to fall lifeless, deflated to the ground. I'm sorry, it gets me a little emotional. My pet goldfish was stabbed to death by an imposter once. Never really got over it. No one told me that's not how you're supposed to take care of a fish. Take the neck snap animation, for example. There are really only 4 poses here. The hands up, the grab, the snap, and the fall. The hands up acts as an anticipation for the grab pose. The body bounces a little as it is grabbed. The snap has basically no in-between frames to make it feel more violent, and the body squashes as it hits the ground. Meanwhile, the imposter's body remains completely still throughout this whole thing, making sure that all the attention is on the one being killed. And that's just the simplest example. The stabbing animation... Sorry, I'll keep it together. The stabbing animation follows these same principles. The imposter's body stays still as the hand does most of the work. Snapping from pose to pose makes it more violent, and the body plops to the ground. Deflated. Lifeless. I'm sorry, I can't help it! Then don't even get me started on the gun animation, which is my favorite due to how funny the poses on it are. I mean, you just gotta give the animation team some credit for really crafting some dynamic, funny poses for these death animations. They are a huge part of what makes this game so appealing. But there's gotta be more to appealing animation than just funny poses. Funny poses does not an appealing animation make. So to dive a little deeper into why these animations are just so appealing, we gotta go look at another animation principle. Squash and stretch. I don't think I even need to bring up a definition for this one. It's exactly what it sounds like. Actions look bouncier and more interesting when there's a bit of compression and a little bit of elongation. Just a tip for all you adults at home. We've already touched on this a little bit when talking about the kill animations, with each pose being accentuated by a slight little stretch or squash in the right direction to make up for the lack of frames. But we can also see squash and stretch when our character runs. He squashes down like a bouncy ball hitting the ground and stretches out on the way up. His little backpack follows just slightly behind for a bit of secondary animation. And if you're wearing a hat, then the hat also bounces up and down on your head as you run. It's these little details that give life to a pretty bare bones set of animations, and it doesn't stop at the characters. Even the environment has those little touches that bring the whole world to life. From the lights that glow on and off, to the steam coming out of the engines, to that one floating box in storage. Even how the whole screen shakes when things happen in game. These little details add so much character and appeal to the game, and the animators and designers knew that. And that's just on the scale. There's strength in simplicity. In a world now where a lot of games are trying to go for the best 8K 60 FPS, most realistic graphics, it's nice to see a game like Among Us to just have a little fun. It's not much, but it's nice. I don't know for how long Among Us is gonna be popular. I don't even know if it's gonna be popular when this video comes out, but I could safely say that Among Us has some really appealing, funny, charming animation. It's just so inspiring to watch and really fun to watch, and if this game does end up becoming irrelevant in the near future, I'll at least give them credit for that. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.